I'm Eric.
And I'm Jaime.
And this is Horrorscope, a podcast for people who love horror movies.
And people who want to love them. Fargo, I have to introduce you. A Muppet of a man and a man of a Muppet.
As previously mentioned on Horoscope.
That's true. Yeah.
There are multiple episodes.
Yeah. Our friend, the Muppet Man, Fergo.
Is he a manly Muppet or is he a Muppet of a man?
It's in his, after all of Fargo's many accomplishments, it's my favorite part of your bio is the end is that you are a Muppet.
I mean, it's the truth. That's where we get to the truth of me, you know, beyond all the superficial qualities. What really matters is that I am a Muppet.
This is gonna, in the context of what we were watching today, this is gonna crack me up, but can you tell us about your background with horror?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's interesting because I was listening to another episode of the podcast, and it is interesting how many people were like terrified of horror anything when they were younger. I was one of those people. I was 100% one of those people for like a long time. And actually, I remember I have recently thought about this a lot. But when I was in 5th grade, I went with a friend to go see in the theaters Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
Okay.
It was like, this is exciting, you know, I get to go to the movies. This doesn't happen very often. I have a friend. That's rare.
That's like, a big deal in 5th grade.
Big deal, right? Yeah. And a trailer before the movie scared me so much that I was like, I'm leaving. I'm sorry. And I went and called my mom and I went home. I never saw it. I did see it much, much later. But recently, so I was like, that was like my vibe. Is I would just be terrified of everything.
What was the trailer?
Well.
Okay.
For the longest time, I had no memory of what the trailer was there. And I was like, because it started and I shut my eyes and plugged my ears in fear.
You blacked out.
But I know, yeah. And I just totally repressed the memory. But recently, I was like, what was it? I really want to know. So I began an in-depth process of researching, which consisted of Googling what trailers played on Hellboy 2: The Golden Army in Irvine.
That's where I would start.
In 2007. Yeah. Surprisingly, there is no list.
What?
I went to a website which is eerily accurate. That's like, guess what my movie is, and you just put in any keyword.
Oh, it's like the genie, like the Ask a Genie from middle school.
Yes, it's like that.
But it's like, guess my movie.
Exactly. And it's like scary. And I put in 2007 horror movie. Woman building.
What the fuck is this movie gonna be, Fargo?
And I found it.
What is it?
I clicked on the trailer on YouTube. Immediately, the images rush into my body.
Oh no!
I'm no longer laying in my bed at the house for my fellowship. Instead, whoosh, I'm back in the movie theater. I'm a 5th grader. I have such a terrible haircut. I'm wearing almost certainly cargo shorts. It just like totally brings back these intense, terrified memories. And it was a movie called, believe it or not, Quarantine.
Oh.
It was, yeah. So it's an English language remake of a Spanish language horror movie called Wreck.
That's right. That movie's fucking scary.
Yeah, and
I made noises of understanding, but I didn't know what that was.
I had seen Wreck. I watched it in high school, and it was like very formative for me in high school.
Oh shit!
And so all of this
all comes back.
It all just like it all clicked into place. I cannot believe that I found that movie when I was literally like in a global quarantine period. Truly wild. But
this would have been a really good setup if that's what we were watching, but we are watching.
I was wondering, I'm like, was it Gremlins somehow?
So all of that is basically a long-winded way of saying when I was very young, I was very scared of things.
The vibe was bad.
The vibe was bad, and I would just like have nightmares if I saw anything remotely scary.
Aw.
I was like afraid to like go places alone, like at school in the middle of the day. It was like a lot. And I don't remember a distinct moment when that changed.
Hmm.
But I remember like a couple of early movies, I think, that like were very influential in getting me to invest more deeply and differently in horror movies. I think one of them was seeing the Babadook in theaters, which was a very
Ugh.
special experience.
I am so that's still on my cannot handle list, and Eric's really
You know,
trying to help me out there, but I can't do it.
it's really not. It's not that scary. It like every time I watch it now, I cry.
That's
Like,
what
I'm
I
not
don't
really
want. I don't
scared
want to
anymore. I
emote.
just
That's the
yeah.
problem.
So if you don't want to do that, maybe avoid. But
Yeah,
It's just about trauma, Jamie. It's fun.
I love.
yeah,
not
I mean,
that.
it's just
No.
about grief. It's only about the overwhelming.
And I don't like his hands. And I don't like his hands. Both of those
The,
things
the
are
Babadook is really. He's scary, but he's also there's something about him.
that rascal.
He's got an energy. So I don't know. Yeah, so I started getting then more into horror, and the more that I watched it, the more I was able to watch it, and the more I wanted to watch it. And especially when I started thinking about it, like in a school sense, also, like I took a really nice college class on gender and sexuality in horror movies with a really great professor. And what I've sort of arrived at is like horror is one of my favorite genres to think about, which is funny because it's also a genre that is like almost like antithetical to thinking about it, right? Because the point is ultimately it's such like a bodily experience. But yeah, now I just really like it. I like it a lot. I love horror.
It's interesting you said movies are the reason you got more interested. You are the reason I got more interested. You
Well,
were,
I'm very glad about that.
yeah, I remember you talking about it and being really interested, and I was like, dang it, I want to get in on that a little bit. I was like, if Fargo likes it, maybe it's good.
Yeah, I mean they're just I don't know. They're transgressive in ways that feel really exciting and really freeing to me.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like there are so many things in the world where I am shocked that people make movies about them that are not just horror. Right? Like there are
Hmm.
so many things in the world where like horror feels like the only vehicle that is capable of expressing and exploring these things. Like I watched I don't know if you have watched or are planning to watch the excellent movie Drag Me to Hell.
I love that movie.
It's
But that's on
fantastic.
the don't watch list.
It's
It's like you're just going through the movies Jamie does not
should
want
be
to
on the
watch.
know.
It's so good, Jamie. It's
I
because
know.
it's
It's funny.
because it's absurd and it's so funny. But also,
Yeah, okay, maybe.
I mean, one of the things it made me think about is like it's very much a movie about capitalism. And then it made me think like, why would you ever make a movie about capitalism that isn't horror? Like, what other genre could possibly capture just the all-encompassing violence of these systems that we live in, besides something that is dedicated to doing just that?
I think that's really smart. I mean, that's something
Yeah.
that we've definitely talked about, and something that I truly believe is that horror movies allow a lot of hard kind of topics to be more digestible.
Mhm.
And I think it helps also like get some of those messages out there, because I feel like sometimes horror is such a dedicated fan base that if you're like, all right, I want to talk about this specific problem, but how do I get like the most audience?
Yeah.
Make it about a ghost or something.
I also think that one thing horror is useful for, with regards to what you were talking about, Eric, is that there are a lot of real life policy and social decisions that are made because of fear, because of very real fears that are deeply held and also stoked and created. And so I think I think one thing that horror can do is kind of articulate and express those things, which is something that I think, for instance, like the Vavitch does really well, because I mean, it's nice that that movie calls itself a New England folktale because it's just what people were truly like genuinely afraid of,
Mhm.
right? Like start to finish, this is what they feared about witches, And so it's interesting to see that and also be able to read it in a sort of historical and abstracted kind of way, but also to know that it was like a genuinely held bodily fear people had. And so I think there's something that I don't know that horror is just something that translates things into something that like scares us and that moves us to do something or talk about it or think about it. But it's also like important because fear is a huge part of the way that we live our lives. And I think that we don't talk about that very often. The way that fear creates and is generative and is productive of our culture and just the way that our lives are structured.
I thought that I'm like, it's interesting you said that because I'm a very fear-driven person, just living my life out, and I thought that to watch and like engage in horror, you had to not be that way. I thought you had to be a big brave boy. You do not, and that's the experience that I've like been picking up on other people as well. Like so many other people are in the same boat, and it's just a way to think about the world, not like. I don't know. I just had a completely wrong perspective of horror before I started watching the movies and thinking about them. And every time we watch a movie, I'm like, I'm surprised this is good. And that makes it like every time we watch a movie, I don't know, like especially some classics too, or like some older movies, I'm like, shit, this movie's really fucking good. And I'm like, I didn't know it could be good, which sounds so stupid, but
and I think it's rooted in like a long history of the idea of like a genre film not being considered like having to have the same kind of artistic qualities that other things might. We see this all the time with horror, especially.
Yes, the snubs,
the snubbing of it all.
All I can think about when you're talking about the witch and how that's a vehicle of like what people were afraid of, all I'm thinking about is the Gremlins. What are the Gremlins,
dude? Well, Gremlins, yeah, I'm so excited to watch this movie.
So we were gonna, for background, I had a bad time watching Black Christmas, and I wanted an emotional break. So we were gonna watch some like good ass classic horror with Fargo, which we still will do. But Fargo, you pitched Gremlins 2 to me first?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said that we were going to watch good ass classic horror, which is what we're still doing.
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry, my mistake.
Cinematic masterpiece.
Well, okay, so a disclosure I will give is that I do think Gremlins 2: the new batch is better than Gremlins.
I need the foundation.
Right. Yeah, Gremlins 2 needs it sets up everything in Gremlins.
Yes.
Especially because Gremlins 2 is like very much about sequels and about being a sequel in ways that are so funny and just deeply chaotic. And so I think in order to really let those things hit in the way that they are fun, you got to start with Gremlins.
I'm so excited. I really am, because Eric was asking me and then we're like, okay, we'll talk about it now. I don't know fucking anything about Gremlins.
I cannot believe that.
I know you're not supposed to put water on them.
Mm-hmm.
And are they like the tribbles from Star Trek?
Yeah.
They like multiply. Mm-hmm. And they look like Furbies, kind of, without the beaks. So less scary than Furbies, and that's all I have.
Okay. Oh man.
Okay. I think that's a really good place to enter into Gremlins.
There are a lot more textures involved, which textures are one of Jamie's.
What? Okay, I'll be fine.
I just want to give you that preference of like they're not all.
What kind of textures? Like goopy? I can handle goopy. Should I read the wiki? Is it time?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Gremlins is a 1984 American comedy horror film written by Chris Columbus.
Not the same guy.
And directed by Joe Dante. The story follows a young man who receives a strange creature called a mogwai as a pet, which then spawns other creatures who transform into small, destructive, evil monsters. Okay. There's a lot more. There's some other stuff here, but I don't think I should read it. Perfect. And I'm just scanning it over with my eyes, and I will go away from it because I don't want to taint my pure heart. Okay, that's it.
What's your prior experience with Gremlins? Like, where did you first see it, Fargo?
How many of them have you physically battled?
Not enough. I think I remember watching it like on or around Christmas.
Nice.
Perfect.
With my family for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It is in many ways a Christmas movie.
Yes. Okay.
So it's potentially, we're getting close to the season, and I think Gremlins is a great choice as we enter that season. And it's hard for me to talk about it, Jamie, because all I want to say is just that this is in many ways the most Jamie movie I can possibly think of.
What does that mean?
Oh, no.
It just has a vibe that I feel like you will deeply connect with.
Okay.
For so many reasons.
Eric is terrified to his bones that I'm gonna hate it. Is that what's happening over there?
There is a horoscope curse, Fargo, of every time I'm like, oh, you're gonna love this movie. It never turns out right. It does have your goblin. It does have goblin energy to it.
That's what.
It's got major goblin energy. It is I don't even know what to say.
Okay, don't say anything. I'm delighted. Even if I don't like it, I am still excited about how excited you are about it.
I mean, that's what's interesting is like I was prepping for our other episode, and I was like, I'm gonna dive deep. I bought the book so that I could read it and be like, here are the differences between the book and the movie.
Holy shit!
I like watched a documentary. I was like, this is a documentary about this conspiracy theories about the movie. I know everything. Like, I have a little chart. I'm like so prepared. I've tattooed lines from the movie on my hands. And for this movie, I have none of that.
You don't have a 27-page paper?
No, I literally don't.
Where's the academic thesis on Gremlins, Fargo?
I know. I need to get around to it. But for this one, my entire approach is just that, like, man, I love those Gremlins.
That's what I want.
Love the way those little Gremlins scurry and scuttle around.
That's all I've ever wanted. Shit, I want to be a Gremlin. Fargo's the pre-movie, like, in the copyright. You pop up and you're like, man, I love those Gremlins.
It's like when you go to Alamo and they have, like, the director or somebody, like, the movie is just Fargo. I'm just like, man, I love those Gremlins.
I do think they're very cute. Okay, and one is named Gizmo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. You're gonna like Gizmo.
I said he's
like
the
Gizmo.
Original Baby Yoda.
That's true. We got some beef to talk about afterwards with Baby Yoda.
Okay. Maybe that's the end of Mandalorian season 2 is that they pour water on him and then he turns into like a big homunculus.
That would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, what's fun about Gremlins in a lot of ways is that it is horror, and I said this to you, Jamie, like it's horror in a very loose but kind of interesting sense of the word.
Yeah.
And especially like it comes out at a very particular moment in horror. In like the development of horror as especially a market in the United States. So you've just kind of had a lot of the big boom in big mainstream commercial success of horror movies. The Exorcist, and then of course a lot of slasher movies come out. And significantly, the thing that comes out the same week as Gremlins is Ghostbusters.
Oh shit.
And so the two of those begin a very different trajectory, which is like the horror comedy.
I have not seen Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters is, I mean, what's interesting is that, like, Ghostbusters is a movie that I grew up with and have seen hundreds of times. And I think it's interesting to think about that movie and Gremlins at the same time, because they also feel very, very much like 80s movies. And in a lot of ways, very, very much like Reagan movies, or horror movies of the Reagan era. I mean, like the bad guy in Ghostbusters is an EPA agent who's like trying to shut the Ghostbusters down for like environmental hazards.
Fuck?
And in the movie, you're supposed to be like, this guy's such a dick. Like, why is he trying to stomp on the Ghostbusters? Fun. And you know, Gremlins is like less easily mapped onto a social context, but there are definitely ways that you can read the fears of this movie onto the fears of the time.
You just told us you didn't have any thoughts besides you love the scuttling gremlins, and then you bring us
I'm making this up as I go along. But I do think it fits interestingly in the wider context of like what horror was like in the 80s, which overall began to lean a lot into like this blend of horror and comedy, camp. You know, a lot of Wes Craven's movies start to take this turn. And so, I mean, there's something interesting about that, especially as the genre is getting more commercial and people are seeing that this is like a big money maker and can be something that is, even if critics still don't really frame or talk about it in the same ways that they do other movies, it makes a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And that starts to become very clear.
Were there like I'm sure there were like little gremlin toys, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The merchandising.
Yeah.
Then
In
where
many
the
ways,
fuck
like-
did Furbies come from? Are Furbies knockoff gremlins?
Yeah.
Why did they make them worse? They made them so much scarier. They gave them little squid beaks.
Because that's cuter, right?
When did you first see Gremlins? What is your connection to Gremlins?
So it's funny that you say it's not that scary, because when I watched it, I was terrified. I was probably like 8 or 9, and my mom was very strict on like what movies I saw as a kid. Although, I stuck around that and watched some spooky movies.
Yeah.
I had an older sister, so she would be watching horror movies, and I'd like go into the living room and like hide behind the couch and like watch them.
Oh my gosh.
Until inevitably something scary happened, and then I'd like book it out.
Oh no.
I was in a soccer league, surprisingly. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. But I went over to like one of the soccer kids' household for like their birthday.
No.
And so like the mom threw on Gremlins for all of us boys to watch. And afterwards they all like got ready to go to bed and they all fell asleep in like the living room. And I'm just like laying there like terrified.
No!
Didn't sleep like the entire night, to the point like the mom had woken up in the middle of the night and just saw me like probably creepily just sitting on the couch like staring forward.
You're like,
and she's like, here's some Digimon, like, will that cheer you up? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever.
And she just threw you some real Digimon to like play with?
Just like actual
that
real
seems
life
like pretty
Digimon.
close to the plot of Gremlins, if I may.
Yeah, and then I put it in water.
You Digimon. It doesn't cheer you up.
So then I just, from then on, like it was just a movie, and we would joke about it because of course like the next day she like apologized to my mom because she was like, didn't get that much sleep because he was terrified by Gremlins. So it's like a household joke that I was terrified by Gremlins.
Oh no.
So I don't know when like I just watched it and got used to it when I was older, I guess. But it was always like present even if I didn't watch it. And yeah,
this watching it again was your quarantine trailer. You just blacked out.
It just the whole. But instead of 2 minutes of a movie, I just sat there.
I'll tell this story someday when everyone's like, "When did you first see Gremlins?" This is when I first saw Gremlins.
Yeah, when we're living in a post-apocalyptic world,
in the wreckage of the old world. Yeah.
Yeah, where Gremlins are like worshipped as gods.
That sounds, honestly, give them a shot at it. That sounds okay. Let's see how they do. You know?
Yeah, I mean, Gremlins do say ACAB, so.
Society has evolved past the need for people. It's Gremlins time, baby!
I'm not against it.
Well, Eric, what do you have? What do we got?
Yeah, I can go over some facts
that
doesn't spoil too much of the plot.
Yeah, I gotta go in blind.
Written by Chris Columbus.
Yes.
Not the same guy. Did not live hundreds of years and then write Gremlins and then peace out.
Suspicious name.
Right? Actually wrote it in like the 1500s.
Yeah.
They found this on parchment.
He had a lot of time on the boat. What are you going to do on the boat? You don't write about Gremlins.
He emailed it to Steven Spielberg from hell. Where he is.
They have a direct line.
The worst part is that it said "see you soon" at the very end. It's like, me and the sharks will be seeing you. Speaking of Spielberg, though, he is attached to this.
Okay.
So yeah, Christopher Columbus. After doing this, he was the guy who made Goonies.
Okay.
So you got Goonies.
I watched Goonies. Was like the one movie I could watch as a kid.
What a weird movie.
My dad was like,
"Yeah, what an odd choice."
Yeah, my dad was like, "This movie slaps. We're gonna watch this. Your mom's not home."
He also made Home Alone.
Okay. Oh wait.
He made the first 2 Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
Miss Doubtfire.
Okay.
And more, including Rent. He did Rent.
Oh no! What? That's a wild discography.
Yeah, a lot of like family stuff.
Yeah.
But like adding a little bit of spooky elements to it. Gremlins, he read it originally a lot darker.
Oh no.
He came up with the idea when he was living in a shitty apartment and there was a bunch of like mice in his apartment.
Oh no.
And like sometimes he'd wake up and they would be like nibbling on his fingers and stuff. He was like, all right, I'm gonna write a movie about this.
Oh Oh no.
And then Gremlins, the term originated in World War II, and a lot of like the airline pilots were like, like when there was malfunctions and stuff, they would blame it on Gremlins.
That's wild. What?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know the things you do back in World War II.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what I thought you were going to say, but it was not that. I thought you were going to say like
the concept of gremlins were invented in World War II as biological warfare. Yeah, this is a documentary.
This is when you guys both take off your masks and you're a bunch of gremlins in people suits this whole time.
God damn it, Jamie! I wish. But yeah, it was popularized afterwards. Roald Dahl had written a book about it. There's a famous Looney Tunes cartoon with Bugs Bunny and a gremlin in it.
Okay.
But they kind of, like the 80s were also a moment where it was like the first, like we're living in the moment, of course, of like remakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that all was still happening in like the 80s. You had like The Thing by John Carpenter, which is a remake.
Yeah.
And then you had people like Joe Dante, who directed this movie, who were like big fans of like the creature films that they grew up in like the 60s.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of picking up the vibe, I feel like, then.
So it's like them taking that stuff and then like making it into like an 80s spectacular, but it's just like kind of repurposing a lot of these things and using 80s like practical effects to remove the cheesiness of it and give it a little bit more of an edge.
Are they They're puppets.
They're puppets.
I mean, they're real.
They're stop motion in it.
But, okay.
They use a bunch, and they are real.
They are real.
There is something really funny, which is that at one point, so it sounds like generally people were like not expecting this movie to be a success in any way. And so they kind of were like, the studio kind of made it because Spielberg wanted to make it. And so they didn't really like care about the actual movie. He literally read the script and just thought it was good. And so, but he was filming Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom. And so he was not around at all, even though he was a producer on the movie. So they kind of just did whatever they wanted. But so that meant there was like one person in charge of making the Gremlins, basically. And at some point, apparently, they tried to have monkeys play the Gremlins.
Excuse me? Real monkeys?
Yes. They were not able to because the monkeys got scared when they had to put on a gremlin head.
How were they expecting a monkey to hold up a whole gremlin head?
They were the Gremlins.
I don't understand the thought process behind that, but I kind of appreciate the commitment that it went from like a meeting where someone was like, we can have monkeys, and someone else was like, okay, I'll get us some monkeys. And then they did it, and then they tried it.
And if it worked out, where would we be now?
We would be living in a socialist utopia if monkeys played the Gremlins. That's all I'm gonna say.
I can't imagine, because they're pretty smart, but I can't imagine trying to make one act.
Yeah. In a suit. That's ridiculous.
Okay, so it's okay. Puppets real. They're real, first of all, but they're also puppets and stop motion and
a lot of like mechanical.
Got
stuff.
it. Okay.
But yeah, Spielberg read the script, like Fargo said. He was the main proponent of making it more like kid friendly. He brought on board Joe Dante for this. Joe Dante made the movie, like a werewolf movie called The Howling, and he also made his original movie was Piranha.
Oh shit!
Which Spielberg called the best ripoff of Jaws he's ever seen.
Oh, weird.
What
compliment.
A way! Yeah, right.
Weird. Okay, so Joe Dante's bringing in the horror flavor, and then Chris Columbus is bringing in the kid friendly family magic.
Yeah, and both Chris Columbus and Joe Dante have like this little bit of like satirical humor to them.
Yeah.
So it was shot on the Universal backlot.
Nice.
And they use a lot of stuff in it, a lot of effects.
A lot of stuff in it.
They use the Gizmo's furs based off Steven Spielberg's dog.
Uh-oh.
That's a little fun fact.
Okay.
Like the pattern of the dog's fur.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I got it.
He was like, make it look cute like my dog. And they're like, here you go.
That's a weird choice to make, knowing what I feel like I know about him later. Gizmo.
Okay, we'll see. Also, there is a dog in this movie.
Yes.
Dog does not die, but is pranked on.
Okay.
Physically.
Okay. Okay.
That's the weirdest way for me to word it, but that's what happens.
Okay, that's fine.
And the dog did believe that, like, treated apparently on set Gizmo like it's another dog. Like, sniffed him, like, wanted to be buddies with the little Gizmo mechanical thing.
It's pretty cute.
So, just think about that when you're watching the dog get pranked on.
Okay.
Go to your happy place.
Is this friend betrayal?
One of the other fun things about this movie is that it is partially responsible for the creation of the PG13 rating.
Oh shit! Okay, wait.
Because
so this is PG-13? I was going to ask that.
So so this movie comes out, and the combination of this and the second Indiana Jones movie, which are both rated PG, but are both like pretty violent, but also have a tone that is not like fucked up necessarily. And so there's like this weird in between space, and there's a big controversy over it. And then Spielberg, in some ways, is like, well, why don't you just make another one? And then the MPAA, who is very, very silly, just does. And so that's why PG-13 exists.
Thanks, Gizmo.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gremlins.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gremlins.
It's crazy. And then Red Dawn, I believe, was the first movie to get that rating,
Yes.
which is like the year next.
Ew. It should have been this.
It should have been this.
It should have been this. Is it? Yeah. What else? Is it time? I want to watch it so bad.
All right. Well, yeah. Do you have anything else, Fargo?
Yeah.
I don't. I really don't. I'm just excited. Yes. I'm just excited.
Okay. Best Gremlin voice. Is that a spoiler?
That's
well,
okay.
Let's hear your Gremlin first.
Yeah, but we can hear what you think a Gremlin sounds like.
Yeah.
Podcast. We're doing a podcast. Is that good?
I can't tell you whether or not it's accurate, because that would be a spoiler, but not bad.
Okay.
It might be better than your Hannibal Lecter. Maybe.
Don't say that. Don't say something you don't mean, Eric. Hey y'all, content warnings for Gremlins. The content warning for Gremlins is a category of cartoonish violence we are calling Gremlin gore. So there are splatters, there is a tiny gremlin with a gun. If you are sensitive to like splatters and goop and textures in a way that I am, just be aware that that is in this movie, but you can handle it, I promise. We are so stoked to have Fargo as our special guest this week. As I mentioned, he's one of the people that really got me interested in exploring horror as a genre, and we are so glad to have him bring the chaotic goblin energy that we need and crave. Thank you, Fargo, for coming on the show and watching this fucked up movie with us. It's our job and it's your job to make the world a little less horrific however we can, and we asked Fargo to choose our cause this week, so we donated to the Sami Dune Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, which is a grassroots, unfunded network seeking to achieve justice for Palestinian political prisoners. If you're enjoying the show, please consider supporting them. As we both know from our steady stream of Christmas horror content the last few weeks, it is the holiday season and we will be releasing a very special episode next week on the 25th. Consider it a birthday gift to Eric from me, which is actually also just for me. We're going to do an end of the year recap as well to talk about the future of the podcast, our process, and everything we thought about recording in the last 6 months. Grab your tiny Santa hats and let's get into it. Wow! Fargo, I loved it.
Right?
Yes, I did. I was so nervous I wouldn't, but
you just can't not.
I'm just delighted. I'm just delighted by them. I'm sad they all blew up.
Right. And we can get into it. We can definitely get into it.
A lot of pro Gremlins talk coming out on this end.
Yes.
And I'm going to share that. I'm definitely going to share that. I'm pro Gremlin.
The Gremlins have seized the means of production.
And I wish they would. So I will also say that Gremlins seizing the means of production is very much a starting point for the beauty that is the Institute of Gremlins 2 studies on Twitter. A Twitter account I dearly love, especially because like they'll post something where I'm like, this is so stupid, and then I'll like read it a second time and be like, but wait,
how is the second one better than this one?
Well, we'll have to watch it.
I guess we're gonna have to.
I don't want to spoil it, but it just gets okay. So, actually, this is actually a good point. So, in this movie, one of the tensions I think you can feel is the tension between Joe Dante and Chris Columbus, because they're making different movies. Like Chris Columbus has written a movie ultimately that is like a sort of family friendly-ish, like weird horror comedy, like
Yeah.
Christmassy feature. And Joe Dante is like, I want to make something really fucked up.
This is a torture film.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's all these moments where you're like, what? Jesus. Like, but then, then there's other moments where it does feel like it's like, oh, well, there's sort of a funny, like, little subversion of It's a Wonderful Life going on.
I
And
feel like that was the score too, exactly. Like there was like
yeah,
the wholesome,
exactly.
like dun, dun, like the bustling Christmas music, and then there
Yeah.
was like the rad fucking
Which I
Gremlin
think the
theme.
name of the song is the Gremlins Rag.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to.
Whatever it is, it's so good.
I have to summarize this movie.
Okay.
Is what I have to do before we talk.
Please go for it.
How the fuck old is Billy? How old is Billy?
At least 21.
At least 21.
He's like 23 years old.
Okay. Weird. Okay.
He's our age.
Okay.
You know when we were living in our parents' house still and they were buying us toys and
yeah.
pets?
And they were buying us robots for Christmas and little dudes. Okay. So we start out with the weirdest voiceover for no reason. And then there's this man, this tall, big man in a fedora, and he goes into he's in Chinatown. He goes into this store and there's this little kid who brought him in, and then this old Chinese man with one white eyeball, crazy contact, and like smoking a pipe. And then the man who walked in is an inventor, and he's trying to sell them on an invention, but then he hears a wistful little tune, and he sees or finds a mogwai, and it's like this little thing he's buying for his son. And then the man who runs the shop is like, no, he's priceless. And then the grandson flips the guy behind his back, and he sells him the little creature who is named Gizmo. And then the man brings it back to his grown adult son, and it's like he's like I have to get this for my son for Christmas. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Do you? The dad's an inventor, and all of his inventions are kind of bad around their house. And he gives his grown ass son, who works at a bank, who we have established is 23, named Billy, who is our protagonist. He gives him Gizmo. And Gizmo is...
Not only that, he says, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
Yeah, like if you're an inventor, wouldn't you invent your
What
son?
would you have been looking for? That you're like, oh, this unknown, brand new species of animal is exactly what I've been looking for my adult son.
Sometimes you just know when you first see it, you know?
You just know.
Sometimes you know when you know.
And then his son already has a pet here. He has a dog.
I do want to, okay, we're going kind of against the dad for getting his son a mogwai.
It was nice.
At 23. If our parents are listening to this, this isn't us saying that we don't want a mogwai.
That's true.
For Christmas.
That's true.
I do want to
That's
establish
true.
that.
Okay.
Mom, I do want a mogwai.
I do want one. I asked Eric, he has like his Krampus Christmas stuff up, and I was like, where is Gizmo? Where is Gizmo? Underrepresented.
Yeah, definitely. A Christmas hero.
Oh, and they put a little hat on him, a little Santa hat on him, and he sings, and he can play the keyboard a little bit.
What can he do?
Yeah.
A little Elton John.
Oh, wait, and then Billy, there's like this weird, like, anti-foreigners in air quotes feeling in this movie, because he's like, oh, these
we're gonna get into it.
Yeah, Billy's car won't work, and his neighbor is like, oh, these foreign cars, and it's a VW Bug. So I'm like, okay, you don't like Germany?
I do like that though. I do like how he's like not discriminate. He's like, oh no, fuck all foreigners, even
fuck
Germany,
every one of them. Okay, so basically they are given the instructions: no sunlight, no food after midnight, and no water. But then the neighbor kid spills water on Gizmo, and then little puffballs erupt from him and turn into like 6 more little Gizmos. But these ones are, I will say, they are little rascals. They are kind of little shitheads. They are on one. They are causing chaos in the home. But not too bad. And they are very cute. And there's one with a little mohawk, and that is their leader, named Stripe. Okay. what the fuck happens? Oh, and then he takes him to the science lab at the school, and he takes one of them to the science teacher. He's like, look at this weird little dude. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take some blood samples on him.
I want to make Billy a little bit more of a villain here, because Billy takes Gizmo there, pours water on him, and then makes Gizmo produce
that's
another
right.
one.
That's fucked up.
Which was fucked, because he obviously saw Gizmo go through, like, it seems like it's painful.
He's having a little seizure.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Billy's like, isn't this crazy?
He's
Splash.
Giving birth. He's giving birth to several other gremlins.
They're so gross. Did they? Okay, so they were like little boils, and then they like yeet off of him.
Yeah.
They like separate from him.
I believe that's how it was written in the screenplay.
Gross. Yes. Yeah. They're like, we made up the word yeet. Yeet off of his body. So then one of them is in captivity, in jail, in science jail. He's in a cage. And then Billy, his clock is broken because we find out a gremlin chewed through the cord. And he feeds them after midnight. He feeds them fried chicken in the one of the grossest scenes of the movie. It's just close-ups of these little puppet mouths eating cold fried chicken, just like going crazy. And then he wakes up and they're in fucking alien cocoons. Like the egg sacs and aliens, they're gross. They're like slimy, and they were like wispy somehow too. They're like kind of a hair texture.
Like a direct call to Alien, I would say.
It's so gross.
Because the scene also when the gremlin in the science lab attacks Billy.
Yes,
like straight out of Alien.
Yes, yeah. That's why I was like, close the door.
Yeah, and Joe Dante is a filmmaker who enjoys films, like, and putting in little callbacks and little like references to films,
like the Indiana Jones knockoff poster.
No, that's just Spielberg being like, if I'm producing your movie, I'm gonna put my stuff in there.
A weird amount of like Spielberg stuff, like the movie theater is showing it's showing a movie I don't remember, and then it's also showing a movie called Watch the Skies, which is not a movie, but is a working title for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
The guy who did the score for this did the score for Alien also. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Wow.
What's his name? Jerry Goldsmith. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a banger of a theme song, and then
he has a huge catalog of work. But like,
wow,
I think you literally got the two ends of being like, okay, this guy can do Alien operatic score, and then like whatever this is,
and then this operatic score. Okay, so basically, they're in gross cocoons. The one in the science lab is in a gross cocoon. He busts out and attacks the science teacher, and we don't see what he is, and the science teacher gets pulled under a table, and then Billy goes because why does Billy go? Oh, he gets a call that he says it hatched. Okay. And then he goes to the science teacher, and then we see the science teacher underneath the table with a syringe in his butt, dead. And that's what you get from drawing blood from a gremlin. And then Billy in the alien scene is fighting this gremlin in the lab. And then is that when we see it for the first time?
Yeah.
Yes. It like busts out, and they have turned into like Crash Bandicoot shaped lizard things.
Actually, what? I think the first time we really see it is in the kitchen.
The house. Okay, that's right. But it like pops out a little bit.
With Lynn. Just on the basis of that scene, like, Ripley who?
Yeah, she did.
Who? Seriously, used the microwave.
That was fucked up.
That scene is very cool and very pro her, unless you are pro Gremlin.
So good.
You're not that pro Gremlin, Fargo.
Jamie
You're
was
not
just
as pro Gremlin as you should be.
I'm watching it, enjoying it like I usually do, but then Jamie's over here like, what is she doing? Why is she murdering these gremlins?
Murdering them. Okay, so yeah, the gremlin is busting through the vents, and then we go back to, he called his mom, and then the gremlins cut the phone wires to their house, so then the phone line goes dead, and the mom immediately heard noises upstairs and grabbed a knife, and I was like, okay.
Good job, Mom.
And then she goes downstairs, and then there is just a slaughter in their kitchen. A slaughter. She juices one. She microwaves one. What else happens? She just chops one up.
Yeah, there was one. I forgot about the one in the middle, because I remember the blender one. I remember the microwave being intense. But it's almost more intense when she just takes a knife and just starts repeatedly stabbing one.
Absolutely demolishes
Carving it
these
like a
gremlins.
Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah, and then there is like a very tense scene where she's walking through their living room and she sees something moving in a Christmas sock, but it's a robot toy. And then one jumps out of the tree, which Fargo is exactly like owning a cat, which I know you know with all of your cats. Do your cats?
The cat is fully intending to strangle you to death.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Got pretty close too. So the mom almost dies. Billy comes in. There was a sword on their wall, which was like a point of having to pick up the sword after it dropped a few times. I don't know. And I was like, that is Chekhov's sword. It was. He kills it. Yeah, he stabs it, right?
He decapitates it. Its head flies into
That's
the fire.
right. And then it screams. Yeah. Fuck me. Okay, and so then
a cool moment, unless again you're pro.
You should have known. Everyone should have known I was going to be pro the Gremlins. There's a girl Billy likes. He works at a bank. There's a mean old lady who said she's going to eat his dog because his dog messed up her Christmas decoration. And she's like, I'm going to fucking torture your dog and eat it. It's fucked up. I was rooting for her to die the whole time. And I got what I wanted. And so then Billy goes to the bar where that girl also works, the girl from his work. What's her name? Do we know? Kate. And the Gremlins have taken over the whole town. They are murdering. They are getting wasted. They are gambling and smoking. There's one lady Gremlin, which I was very confused by. Also, what?
Well, we don't know that it's a lady gremlin. It is a gremlin who has taken on some of the characteristics of what a human woman might take on.
I see. But you would understand why I would take that away, having watched the Smurfs and seen one Smurfette.
And you're like, it's the Gremlinette.
Well, and I will also say this gets elaborated on in Gremlins 2.
I see. Okay, I'll remember that for later. Also, we figured out what the nudity warning was, because there's a nudity warning in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, what is it?
It's the Gremlin flashing her in the bar, but it's just opening up a trench coat.
That's my theory, because there's no other nudity. It's just that.
It'd be real.
And they're all naked, and then they're all wearing tiny clothes somehow. They like raided a Build-A-Bear. They all have clothes. I don't understand how.
I do like how Build-A-Bear has little tiny trench coats.
I'm sure they do. And then Billy rescues Kate out of the bar, and then he has Gizmo in a backpack, and then they have to make a run for it, and it's just chaos. The mean old lady she opens the door and they're all caroling, but they're like singing a little like Gremlin version of Christmas carols. And then they hotwired her like safety seat that goes down the stairs like an escalator, but they hotwired it to go really fast, and it zooms up all of her stairs and then like shoots her out of the roof. And then Billy tried to tell the cops earlier that the Gremlins were coming, and they were getting drunk and they didn't believe him. And then now the cops are like, oh fuck, the Gremlins. And we hear them on the radio. They have taken over the Gremlins. And then we see like all the townsfolk being terrorized, and they deserve it. Do they? I don't know. I was just enjoying the chaos. Yes, thank you. And then all of the Gremlins go to the movie theater, and they figure out how to turn on the projector, and they watch Snow White, and they all sing the hi ho, it's off to work we go song, and they're all like just living and eating candy, and they're like, yum yums. And they're just like losing their fucking minds. And so then they figure out how to light the movie theater on fire and blow it up. And so all of the Gremlins are dead, presumably, except for one who went to go get candy, Stripe. So then they're it's like a department store.
I will say, you did forget about the little trauma time that they took.
Yeah, that was a crucial point.
Someone else talk about that.
Take it away, Fargo.
Well, Kate, earlier in the movie, revealed to Billy that she did not celebrate Christmas and doesn't enjoy Christmas.
And she said, people are opening their presents and other people are opening their wrists.
Yeah, like, people get really depressed in the holidays, which is true.
Yeah.
And at a seemingly random point in the movie, as they are entering the movie theater to blow it up and destroy the Gremlins, she reveals the reason that she hates Christmas, which is that on Christmas when she was like 9 years old. Her father disappeared. Didn't find him for like 4 to 5 days. There was like the police were searching, they couldn't find him. And then it was very cold, so she went to light a fire in the chimney and noticed the smell, she says, quote unquote. And it was her dad who was trying to sneak down the chimney as Santa Claus and broke his neck and died instantly. And this monologue, which goes on for quite some time,
with this like zoom in on her face,
and cuts to reaction shots from Gizmo, the puppet.
Because Billy's like trying to like call a phone.
Yeah, Billy does not give a fuck.
Billy's just like fucking around while
Billy's
she's
like
just like
not
opening
listening.
up. Yeah.
Gizmo is listening and is seemingly
Shocked.
amused.
His like ears are moving.
No, there is a moment where it cuts to Gizmo. You're right, where Gizmo's like, "Ha ha!"
Like, and at the very end of this, Phoebe Cates says, "And that's how I learned there is no Santa Claus."
So good.
And every
so
time I watch this, I'm like, the punchline's not gonna get me. And every time, I'm shocked that she says, "And that's how I learned there is no Santa Claus." And
I have a new fear.
So like,
of somebody climbing down your
Yeah, as someone whose house has a chimney,
it's like an urban legend.
Yeah,
that this happened to people. That was like a big urban legend in the 80s. And apparently everyone except Joe Dante hated that part. And they were like, "Will you please take this out?" And he was like, "No,
that motherfucker.
I want this included as a perfect encapsulation of what the movie is, which is a movie where you're like, am I supposed to be laughing or not? Like, I don't understand what's happening. And to me, that monologue is like such a perfect walking of that line, because if someone presented that to me and said, like, what kind of movie do you think this would be in? I would have no idea. There's just some kind of weird liminal space that Gremlins occupies that very few other movies occupy, right? And you can see in your reactions throughout, Jamie, where you're just like, this movie is like unhinged. Like, what is happening?
It is unhinged.
Something where it just kind of sets up these parameters for itself and then is like, you know what? Fuck those parameters. We're gonna blend up one of the Gremlins immediately.
Oh.
Do you want to? you got a little bit ways to get. You're almost there.
We're pretty close.
This
movie is like a cool 2 hours. Also,
a breezy.
Flew by. Delighted every moment. They're in the department store. We get literally the most insane. The best part of the movie has to be Stripe, and it's like, Billy. And then he looks over. What else does he say? I don't remember what he says.
He says, "Rider." And then he looks directly to his right and says, "Gun."
And there's a tiny gun! So that I'm like, okay, Fargo, also, Eric DMs a D&D game that we play, and I play a goblin who has a gun. This is right up my alley. Yes, and she has a crossbow. And then I convinced Eric to give me a gun. And I was like, it's happening.
It's the evolution. I'm Billy somehow. You're not getting a chainsaw, though.
Oh my god, yeah. So then Stripe is absolutely kicking Billy's ass. Absolutely. They split up. Kate has Gizmo. Billy is going to try find the other guy with the baseball bat. Gizmo separates himself and finds a toy car and is zooming along trying to save Billy. Kate is trying to figure out how to turn all the lights on, and then Billy is getting his ass absolutely handed to him by this gremlin. Fargo, you texted me he's torturing him, and he shoots him with a crossbow, a tiny crossbow. What else does he do? He shoots baseballs
like
at him.
Automated baseball thing.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk about for sure, because
I
think the Gremlins are they're so fascinating.
Just chef's kiss. And then he finds a chainsaw and is going after Billy and is like gonna kill him, and he like shot him with the crossbow. There's an arrow sticking out of him. He's like gonna die. And then Gizmo shows up, right?
No,
the lights turn
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yes, okay. So Kate gets the lights on, and then and then he loses him. Stripe runs away, and then he's going towards this like inside pond thing, like fountain, which was the water. And then he's like getting ready to dip his toe in, and then he sees Billy, and then he sees Gizmo, and then Gizmo figures out how to open the ceiling skylight. And Gizmo, I forgot, he's saying like bright light, and I remember that being like a thing that people said. I've like heard people say that before, but I didn't know it was from this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
It's like never watching SpongeBob and just hearing our generation speak.
Yes, yeah. Yes, correct. And then Gizmo is able to open up the skylight, and then disgusting. Stripe turns into a little skeleton of goop and creepy eyeballs, and then falls in the water, and then gets tossed out of the water for like a final death throw, and then turns into like a skeleton, and then turns into a pile of goo. And then somehow Billy's dad is there. I don't know how his dad got there. Oh, his dad was gone. His dad was at an inventor convention for like the whole movie.
Which is very good.
Yeah, I said it was like B-list Doctor Who props, like everyone walking around. Eric pointed out Steven Spielberg goes by.
Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith is in there.
Yeah.
There's a character that's supposed to be Joe Dante. They just like replicated his outfit.
That's weird. Okay.
It was like the props department joke on him. Like, this is your outfit, you idiot.
That's funny.
There's also, I don't know if you caught it or if you've caught it, Fargo. I didn't catch it until I was watching behind the scenes.
Yeah.
In the background of like the first shot, there's a time machine from the original Time Machine movie.
Oh.
And you see like an old man in it. And it cuts away to like the mom or whoever's talking to him on the phone. And it cuts back and the time machine is gone. And there's a bunch of people running over and looking, and there's just like smoke.
Oh shit!
So, like, somebody just like used the time machine and like went back in time in like the background of this movie.
That's so funny. No, I didn't notice that. I want to watch all the behind the scenes stuff. I want to see how they made the little dudes.
Yeah, I'll send you some links. There's a good like 17-minute one of just like, this is how we made all the puppets.
Perfect.
Because they also did for Gizmo, because the animatronics at the time to make his face so expressive, they didn't have like enough like compact space for that.
Yeah.
So every time it's a close up and he's really emoting, it's actually a huge Gizmo with a bunch of huge props with him.
I know it's an audio medium and you just got silence, but my mouth just flew open in shock. I want a giant Gizmo!
So it's like when he's like with like the little 3D glasses or like in the car, it's just like a big Gizmo.
Wow. Okay, well we're almost done. We're so close. We saved the day. It's great. They go back to the house. It's still Christmas Eve. The news is like a series of weird events and mass hysteria and blah blah blah. And then the shop owner shows up from the beginning, and he's like, "You have poisoned all things from nature. I'm taking back my little dude." And Gizmo calls him Papa. And then he says, "Bite me on the ear, it's so cute." And then he leaves and he takes him. And he's like, "Maybe someday you'll be worthy of the Mogwai." And then he leaves and then he walks away. And it's like this man walking and there's like Christmas lights. And it's like, "Yep, well, maybe it's a gremlin if your car breaks down." Like at the end, the weird dad's voiceover.
I do like how at the end, he's like, "Maybe it's a gremlin. You wouldn't know." I'm like, I very much would know if it was a gremlin.
I think you just showed us.
I do appreciate gremlins a lot because they always laugh at their own bits. They're very like infatuated. I could really relate to that. Yeah,
I love them. I love the popcorn bucket over the head. I love them. I love everything about them, Fargo. I love them. I
do too. I think the Gremlins have really good energy. They have good.
Yes.
So the first thing I wanted to briefly talk about is
the war on Christmas.
Wow. The war on Gremlins. Because you were saying like, okay, you were when you were recounting the moment that Mrs. Peltzer kills all the Gremlins.
Yes.
You liked it, Fargo, which means you weren't pro Gremlin enough. But I want to push back on that a little bit.
Welcome to our debate club.
You're just like settling it.
I don't think the Gremlins are pro Gremlin.
They have no sanctity of life.
The Gremlins, yeah, they literally don't. One of the Gremlins shoots another one just because it's like at the card table, you know. And so I don't know. I think what is interesting about the Gremlins is that they are just every single thing that exists in Kingston Falls, I think, is that what the name of the town is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that exists there is just opposed by the Gremlins. They're just an equal and opposite destabilizing force against every single thing about it. So in that way, I am pro Gremlin, but that means that I'm just pro like the disintegration of everything that is in the town.
Pro chaos.
Pro chaos, right? Like all of these institutions in the town just get like destroyed by the Gremlins, but also all of the people, regardless of whether or not they're good, right? Like you think that there's a sense that like just the people we're meant to not like are going to be attacked by the Gremlins, like
Yeah.
the evil like bank woman and the like stupid cops. But they get attacked, but also so do everyone else. So does Billy. So does like
Yeah.
Corey Feldman's little weird character.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually much better because
Yeah.
all of those people are living in this 80s like perfect small town. And I think in some ways the Gremlins are showing us that like that is at its foundation a lie. It is at its foundation like a place of where people in the background and in betweens of the movies are being like potentially evicted from their homes because they can't like raise enough money to
That's a
like give
great
to the
point.
bank, right? Like
Yeah.
all of these little violences are happening, and nobody's doing anything about it. Billy works at the bank and is just like, I guess I gotta do what Mrs. Deagle says.
Yeah.
So like, you know, no
After
one
she
is.
said she was gonna kill, like, torture his dog to death, he's like, I guess I'll cash her check.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like no one is doing anything. And so I think the Gremlins in some ways are like coming into this town that especially in the 80s, which was a period of intense nostalgia for like the 50s, right? The period of time where just after the World War where Gremlins were like invented. A war that it seems like Mr. Futterman fought in, you know, and therefore did develop probably extreme anti-German specifically sentiment. So this
Oh.
intense nostalgia for the 40s and 50s, which is like a period of small towns like this one. And instead the Gremlins come in and just like briefly show that like all of this is bullshit. And like give us a little glimpse of what it would feel like to live just knowing all of it was bullshit.
The phrase that came to mind was live deliciously.
Yes, 100%.
This is what he meant.
Now like to live deliciously. And the Gremlins
It's
just do what they want.
Yeah, the Black Phillip shows up to a gremlin.
It's about the Gremlins.
The gremlin's like, yeah. They sign their
love
contract and they
that.
start flying.
I think that reading is very good. So do you think that they so do you think that was the difference between like director and writer?
In some ways, yes, and this
Yeah.
actually becomes more clear again in the sequel, which
Yes.
is when Joe Dante like kind of had much more creative control over the sequel,
Oh my god, it's probably so
and
fucked up.
it's like it's way more fucked up, but it's also
Oh my
just much
god.
all the little moments in this movie that are like pieces of critique in some way, or like giving us a little bit of context to understand the Gremlins, become way more clear in the second movie, and like
Okay.
more aggressively clear.
I would argue though, I don't think it's between director and writer. I think it's like it's writer and producer, because Spielberg was the one who came in
Okay.
and took Christopher Columbus's script, which was a lot darker. Like the dog dies in it.
For
I think
sure.
the mom gets murdered in it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And so
Right.
Spielberg pretty much was like, I want to do this, but at the same time, I know how to make E.T. Like, I know my shit.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
make this more family friendly. And so he was the one who really came in, like honed it down. And Joe Dante just definitely has like the sensibility of like that combination of kind of like dark comedy where it's like violence meets, which I think is like, according to everything that Fargo was just saying, of just like where two comes into play is it's very much more like Spielberg isn't on there as much anymore, so he's able to do his.
He got it in kind of under the wire. It kind of feels like the moments of like fucked upness kind of happened by accident, but I loved them.
Which even in like the behind the scenes
Yeah.
features, a lot of them are like, I can't believe we got like this whole movie's like I can't believe we got away with it.
I agree. Yeah.
One, they can't believe it worked as far as the practical effects go because it sounded like it was a
Yeah, the
nightmare.
practical effects were really good. They were
And
amazing.
it was a hugely successful movie. I mean, it made like
Ooh.
$150 million on a budget of 11 million. So it's like it's very successful, right? And I think and that is very significant in what it does to the genre. It spawned like so many imitators, including the movie Troll, though not the movie Troll 2. But
Troll 2 is wholly independent, a wholly original idea.
Troll 2 came from
It's
God.
really its own thing.
Troll 2 actually influenced Gremlins 2, I believe.
Really?
No.
No, oh my god. You say so much bullshit, Eric. I have to be like,
hard
what?
facts, you mean?
Well, okay, what did we not like? We gotta cover all of our bases here. Is there anything you have beef with, Fargo?
I'm not a huge fan of the very ending, and that is partially because I'm not partially because the like weird Orientalist, like anti-Asian racist framing of this movie.
Really weird.
Yeah, it's okay. And so what this also does, though, is give a reading of this film that like a number of people share, which is that it's an immigration allegory. That like one nice gremlin moves in somewhere and then like has a lot of children and like takes over a certain place.
Oh shit.
Which is very much like an 80s fear, right? And a kind of quintessential American fear.
Yeah.
So it is like it's like a kind of compelling read of the movie, which makes it then interesting that they specify that it's like from a Chinatown store. But I just think it like is not like I don't think that's on purpose. I think that's more accidental than intentional, which doesn't mean that it's like not an interesting reading of the movie, but I also don't think it gives us that much.
It's like a kind of, I don't like saying a product of the time, but it's just it does feel like that kind of happened accidentally. Mm-hmm. It was more convenient.
Right. I mean, it also just generally speaks to like a fear of Asians in the 80s, especially in regards to like modernity and kind of technological battles and developments. And so I think that comes through in a lot of movies in like just these small ways in the 1980s. And I think this is one of them where it's just like this feels like a useful little thing to throw in as an explanation. And I think the way they explain it at the end, where he comes in and is like, "You poisoned the Mogwai just like you poisoned everything else." It feels like too easy and too simplifying of the Gremlins to me.
I mean, they didn't like make them. I mean, they did make them evil by being careless, but they still had the capacity to do that. It's not like they invented it or like made them be that way. What were you gonna say, Eric?
I was gonna say that it could also be seen as like to put some of the blame on like it's like mishandling appropriation, because it's pretty much the dad coming into like a Chinatown stealing some of their artifacts and then goes back and then they mishandle that. It's like when it's in the right
ironic Steven Spielberg choice then, huh? With Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, well again, to Fergo's
King
point,
of
the 80s
theft of artifacts. Yeah.
But yeah, no. So in a way, I think like it definitely is that whole like fear of the suburbs of like, you know, foreign kind of infiltration to it, which goes into even like what we just like mentioned with Red Dawn was like another like but yeah, so it's just like it's just like they take what they want, like the family, they take what they wanted and then they misused it, suffered the ramifications of it, and then they're like, oh, you fucked that up.
It does kind of feel tidy. I kind of
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways it's interesting because it almost answers in a little ways like the questions of how or why the Gremlins learn culture so quickly.
Yeah, they can fucking read?
They start
Yeah, I
singing.
mean,
They
they
knew
know how to
Snow
work
White.
cars immediately.
Yeah.
They are playing cards. They like
Big fans of
choose to go to a
Flashdance
bar.
and Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, and so it is a question of just like, well, how do they know these things, and why are they doing them? Like, why are they excited about like pranking someone via fake Christmas Carol and then shooting them out a window, right? Like,
Oh,
But
that
I guess
sentence
that
is just so good.
that ties into what you were saying, though, kind of, where it's like the one family comes in, then there's a bunch of other families that move in. Where, I mean, even to Jamie's point too, like when they're watching the movie, all they're doing is watching the movie. But since they are gremlins or like the foreigners, it's wrong. Like it's wrong that they're what they're doing. It's wrong that they're caroling. It's wrong that they're drinking. It's wrong that they're watching movies because they're the other.
I don't. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I want to like read into it too much. You know what I mean? But I think it is. It's worth it to think about it that way. But I don't know how.
I mean, like all the other
Yeah.
film analysis stuff that I was talking
good
about earlier,
point.
it's just people being like, "Man, this movie's fucking great.
Yeah.
This movie's fucking dope."
Yeah, maybe that's the camp I rest in. Also, like a fucking wild line right after the trauma monologue about her dad dying. She's like, "What are they doing in there?" He's like, "They're watching Snow White and they're loving it." And they're loving it like killed me.
yeah.
It's so fucking funny. Yeah, I think. Is there anything else you guys didn't like? Well, first of all, I can see how this traumatized you as a kid.
Thank you.
This would be very scary.
Yeah.
If you were a kid, how old were you when you saw it, Fargo?
I was like, it was only a few years ago that I first saw it.
Oh, okay, so like grown. Yeah, not like a child.
I was like about the age of Billy.
Okay, roughly Billy age.
Working at a bank,
Billy,
had
so
a
maybe
dog.
like 33.
And that one fucking banker, he's like, "I'm 23," and I was like, "Bitch, you are not 23."
Not 23. Absolutely not.
And he's like, "I'm gonna own the bank." I'm like, "Shut up." What happened to that guy? Where was his comeuppance? You know?
Yeah, he did disappear. I'm sure there's a deleted scene. There has to be.
Yeah.
His extreme gruesome murder. They're like, "This is too much. We gotta take it out."
You know that saying, "It died by 1,000 cuts"? Well, they did it.
Oh my god. I don't know if there's anything I would like take out. Maybe the weird, I don't know, like the weird mean banker lady for no reason. But I guess I don't know.
I like her. I think
Yeah.
it works especially because of the way that it's playing with and subverting It's a Wonderful Life specifically.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life.
Never
seen the movie.
Right. Well, so I mean, in that one, you have a similar like evil banker figure.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting that there is in some ways a tradition of American movies that just don't trust banks or bankers, which is kind of like interesting and unexpected.
It's like the only time you can get mercy is during Christmas, and then after that, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I like her because of like, especially as soon as she comes in, like how aggressively evil she is.
Yeah.
There's no attempt to hide it. She's like, "Hey, your dog broke my snowman, and either you let me take him to the kennel where they put him to sleep, or I will like put him in my spin dryer."
And then that one guy
cooks.
like,
and the guy next to her is like, "That'll do it, all right." That man, his soul is like gone. This person's like moral foundation has been eroded.
How many dogs does he have in his dryer is the question.
No. I see, that's the problem too with movies like this. It's like you can't take anything out. You can't dislike anything about it because it's so buck wild.
You could take out the monologues.
The monologues?
No, the intro and outro of the dad.
Oh, no, the intro and the outro. The weird voiceover.
Yeah, the voiceover, yeah.
Not the trauma monologue. That has to stay.
No, that's the antithesis of the movie.
It could go.
Yeah.
They are. It seems to me that they're mostly based on how nice of a voice he has.
Yeah.
I do think he's really funny in this movie.
Yeah, I thought he'd be more of a main character. I thought it was going to be about him.
Well, and what's interesting is that their family seems great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they're just
I think
chilling.
it's like really kind of sweet and sad that Billy and his mom are like intent on trying to use the dad's terrible inventions to the
Yes.
point where he doesn't buy orange juice in a carton like a normal person. He's like, well, I want to use my dad's invention. And they all seem like genuinely like they kind of know that it's silly, the dad's inventions, but they're all just agreeing to like support it.
Yeah.
Like even when
Yeah.
the coffee maker just makes like sludge, the dad is kind of laughing at it too. So there is like
Yeah.
there's this sense of warmth between them that always surprises me in this movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like they say that he's supporting his family too, basically, by his bank clerk job. And it was weird, like the way they treated Billy's age. I know we've been joking about it, but I think that's something I was really confused by because he's like, "Yeah, I got this for my son." And he goes, Dad, can I open it?" I'm like, "You're grown. You were just in a bar drinking alcohol." Like, and I don't know. And then the guy comes to take him away, and he's like, "Dad, no!" And the dad's like, "No, let him take it, son." It's like, what's going on? But that was fine. I kind of liked. I guess I actually kind of liked that because it was so fucking weird.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of was just like, you know what? Sure, why not? He's ageless. He is all ages and no age at once. But I also thought Mrs. Futterman was really nice. He was like really unpleasant and like his cable was messing up and he was like kind of mean to his wife, the army vet guy, and she was just like really nice and like singing Christmas carols. And then did they die? They got snowplowed.
She seemed kind of like a Stepford wife.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
But I think they do like it. Definitely implies that they were run over by a snowplow.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah,
and
the guy's just driving a snowplow.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't.
And yeah, definitely Futterman is interesting and like is pretty on the nose about like, geez, like all of these things have foreign parts and I don't like that.
Yeah.
Which, then the Gremlins, which represent for him anything foreign, are the ones who kill him with a snowplow, which is interesting, right? And it does like it gives this sense in some ways of both like a fear that is then like validated, like, oh my god, there were gremlins
Yeah.
that I believed in and they came in and they killed us. And it also gives a sense, depending on how you read it, as like, oh, like good for the gremlins, like fuck that guy, he's like weird and xenophobic and racist, like fuck that guy. And if the movie was just one of those two, I think I would like it slightly less. But I like it better because the Gremlins just don't give a fuck about anyone. If they're racist or not, the Gremlins don't give a shit. Like they just want to like do whatever they want immediately in the moment, and they do it.
You know what? Maybe there's a lesson we can all learn about living in the moment and mindfulness from the Gremlins.
There is. In some ways, I think there is. Like, the Gremlins are just this great force that is, like, both very, very destructive, but also is creating things. And it follows no logic. It follows no rules. It is just, like, purely untamed. And so, wow. I mean, in some ways, it is, like, it's almost the opposite of what that store owner character says at the end, which is like, oh, you like poisoned all the gremlins the way you've poisoned everything. It's like the gremlins are like an opposite force against the civilizing and kind of suburbia of Kingston Falls. They're like, they just go and undo everything that makes this 80s suburb like a respectable, civilized, quiet place.
Yeah, that was the wrong takeaway.
I agree. I think so.
Because after they pretty much successfully like destabilize it within like a night, and then they're like, "Cool, we did it. Let's peace out to the movie theater and watch ourselves a movie and get some candy."
Yeah, they were like, "We've done our work."
We did.
Here.
They're like, "We did it." Yeah, and I guess like the end result is just they would just watch movies then.
I love that. That's us. That's peak us.
That's us right now. That's what we're doing.
We do our chaos and then we watch movies.
I think the only thing to talk about maybe is we talked about PG-13.
Yeah.
And then also it being coming out the same weekend as Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
and actually did better the second weekend, surprisingly.
Nice.
And so then throughout, like for a while, it was in theaters with Ghostbusters, and both of them were competing back and forth for like the top spot.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Which is just a crazy time.
Advertisers definitely pitched this movie to families as like a funny, like cute little creature thing. And then families were like leaving the theaters being like, what if I
murder.
could just make my child go for it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Which is like is one of the reactions that led to PG-13.
That's
but
so rad.
Like it's that to me is also kind of delightful.
Yeah.
Imagining these like 80s kind of buttoned up like families going to this movie expecting to see one thing and then getting this just like pure chaos movie.
Yes.
It's like it tickles me a little bit.
Deeply appreciate that. I think movies should traumatize your child a little bit.
Mismarket.
Yeah. Because then they grow up, they're terrified maybe, but then they end up like or even like Fargo, who somehow like have found our ways to like loving horror movies, and now you too. And it's just like you have a greater appreciation for those things that scared you as a kid.
They grow up into a gremlin.
Yeah, there we go.
I want justice for all of my impersonations I've done that Eric has dunked on, because the Gremlin one was perfect.
You can't get validation for others just
I want that. I'm just pitching
I will give you this one.
Yeah. You were like spot on.
Yeah, you guys were both like, that's an interesting.
We just said the word gremlin, and you were like, I know this. I am this.
You were right. You were right about, I'm glad that this is my like fucked up kind of energy I put off. This is me without anxiety. This is who I could be if I just
no anxiety.
Went feral.
This is like your poster tagline. It's like, no anxiety, has a gun. Jaime.
Jaime the King.
This Christmas season.
This is when I go feral. If you guys see someone chew through your phone wires, you knew what happened.
Or if you're wearing a bucket, a popcorn bucket on your head.
Both. Why not both? Okay. I deserve both. But I would give this on a scare meter. I would give this like a cool 1.
Damn,
right? It's not scary.
Current me? Yeah.
You can't grade it on baby Eric. Yeah, I give it like a 1.5. There were some moments where I was like, oh my god, but I wasn't scared. I was just like, the one thing that scared me was the noise of the baseball shooter, the automatic baseball shooter. It just caught me off surprise. I was like, ah! But besides that, I don't really think it's a scary movie. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's not scary unless necessarily you are a small child who's been told this is like a funny E.T. movie.
Yeah.
I will say there is the moment when Mrs. Peltzer is like in Billy's room and then hears "Do you hear what I hear?" turn on.
Yes.
Is really good. And I think it's the closest the movie comes to like a horror movie sequence.
She's holding a knife, yes, and she has to like go downstairs.
She's like up there and she hears it start to play, and it's much slower than any of the other violence in the movie. Like it follows her a lot longer, and it takes her a lot longer to like see the gremlins. So that sequence itself is the closest it gets to like actual what we would understand as like the framing and pace of a horror movie. But overall, I don't think it's scary. I think it's liberating and joyful.
I would agree. I would give this if we're gonna rate it on goodness, I give it a 5 gremlins out of 5 gremlins. And that's not 5 stars out of 5 stars. It's 5 gremlins out of 5 gremlins because it's its own goddamn thing.
There's our solution. Just changing the rating
system.
Yeah,
I'm just going to change the metric. But it is, it's a delight. It's very fucking weird. It is very, like, off-kilter.
It really is.
It's fucked up. And I loved it.
You know what is fucked up?
What?
Is how much Baby Yoda stepped on Gizmo's
That's a
spotlight.
great point. That is a great point.
Who does he think Gizmo doesn't even need to be Baby Gizmo. Baby is cute as is.
Someone just watched this and was like, Lucasfilms.
I have an idea.
Yeah. I have an idea. Make it green.
It was like Spielberg showing George Lucas, like, hey, yeah, we're making this movie. Pretty cool, right? He's like, yeah. That is cool.
I'm gonna hold on to this for
A while.
40 years. You motherfuckers will see in 2019.
That George, he plays the long cons.
I forgot about Baby Yoda.
Everybody would after seeing Gizmo.
So cute, Fargo. His little singing.
It's aggressive how cute Gizmo is.
Oh, that's Howie Mandel, by the way.
What?
Yeah, Howie Mandel voices Gizmo.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that.
That is the most insane thing you've ever said.
Does he do like American Idol? Or what is he on? The Voice?
He does.
The X Factor.
Yes, right? Here, look it up so we're not wrong. Doesn't he? I thought he did Deal or No Deal.
Oh, Deal or No, yeah, duh,
right?
Yeah.
The suitcase game.
Yeah. He does he does Deal or No Deal, America's Got Talent, you're right.
Oh my god. That's fucked up. I don't like that. I never wanted to know.
It was before those days, though.
How old was he? He was an adult still.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. Now I'm just imagining his face with the ears, and I don't like it at all.
Oh, okay. There's a part of the behind the scenes you should skip then, because
it's
him doing the voice.
Wow, I don't even know what to say. I was going to say everyone do their best Gremlins voice to sign off, but
you'll just knock us out of the park, though.
Yeah, that's true. I was just setting myself up. Fargo, do you have anything to plug?
I don't really. Okay, so I mean, you can follow me on Twitter if you would like at Fargo, YOUKNOWFARGO.
And now you do know Fargo.
Hello.
Now you do in some ways. I mean, you know how I feel about the movie Gremlins, which
what else is there to know?
At least 80% of my personality. But other than that, no, I don't really have anything to plug.
You do have to do a Gremlin voice, though, please.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, but I better do a compare and contrast. So compare and contrast is gonna go like this. I'm gonna say, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. This was so fun. Can't wait to come back if you'll have me.
Duh.
Oh, of course.
That was take one.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Take two would be, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Jaime and Eric. This was so fun. If you have me back.
You took so long, and we were like, what is he going to do? Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for changing plans with us last minute and bringing your gremlin-y light onto this lovely movie.
There is a horror movie for every situation, for every way you're feeling.
Hell yeah. Sometimes you feel like doing arson, I guess.
And that's the end of our episode. Make sure to review, follow, and share the podcast if you enjoyed it. Also follow us on Twitter at Horrorscope Pod with 2 Ds and at Instagram at Horrorscope Pod with 1 D. Your horoscope for the day is, don't feed your podcasters after midnight.